My name is Shannon. I am the operations manager for Best Choice Realty. And today we have our special and favorite trainer. Don't tell anyone at the MLS, but we have Roxanne here to join us to talk about the OneHome technology. I know this is something that we've had a lot of questions about from a lot of agents. So I actually am guilty of not knowing enough about this. So I'm grateful that we were able to get this on the calendar. So I've got Roxanne who's going to share her screen, and I'll just let you take it away, Roxanne, if you're good
Awesome.
with that.
And can you see my screen now?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
I just wanted to make sure that I was actually connected.
Yeah.
Hey, everybody. Good morning. Thanks for, kind of coming and joining to learn more about OneHome. It is definitely something that I think a lot of questions have come up about for a lot of folks right out there using it. And so all I need is about this hour of your time, and I swear you're going to get all the sort of ins and outs. It's not very complicated. It's just kind of new to wrap your head around. And I actually kind of want to even just start with the real basics here, because one of the things that I feel like has caused some confusion is that OneHome has this name, right? It's called OneHome, but it's actually not something new, really. I mean, oops, wrong direction. There we go. Here, it is new, right? It came out actually in October, so relatively new. But what it is a replacement to what we used to just refer to as the client portal, right? It didn't have like a name or like a real website anyone could go to or anything. But what it is it's the place that your clients see when you send them an email, like with a listing in it through the Matrix database. So you probably have been using OneHome. If you sent a single email to anybody since October 2021, your clients have been using OneHome, because that's really what it is. It's just the client website that's been kind of amped up. It went through a big makeover. It's got a bunch of new stuff that I want to show you around, but the basics of it are still following, sort of the same patterns that you've probably already been going through, in the past. And so for one thing, I just want to make that really clear. It's not an app that anyone needs to download. It is just a website that you open in a browser, although it's mobile friendly. So, it's great on phones, but it's not also something that you need to necessarily use too much on your own. It's just good to know about sort of the way that it works, because your clients are likely going to be using it, right? And this is, again, anytime you're sending a listing through Matrix is how OneHome sort of comes into play, because it's going to be the website that is linked in that email, right? And your clients get to see it. So I'm going to give you a full kind of tour of that. And like I said, I'm just going to take about an hour of your time, and I'm going to kind of split that up into two parts. We're going to spend the most of our time talking about how OneHome does work for your clients, because that's really what this is a client resource, right? And so I'm going to go through, if you're relatively new and you or just never really sort of became familiar with that client portal that we had before OneHome, then, it's probably going to be easier for you than anyone who's like super into the old one, right? Making a transition. Honestly, it's pretty easy to use. But if you are someone who used the old one and now are getting some information about OneHome, the biggest differences to just be aware of is that there is enhanced property information in the listing. So there's more information than there used to be, sort of connected to not just the information from the listing broker, but easy access to some public record stuff. And I'll show you all that. And then there's also some new features. And some of the new features require an activation of an account in OneHome. And that's probably the biggest switch, at least mentally. I know it was for me from the way that we did things before. And so I'll make sure to give you all the details about that and answer any questions that come up. In fact, you can, of course, speak up at any point, but I do have the chat sort of box open as well. So if you want to use that to ask a question, either way works totally fine for me. And then after we focus on the client side of things, like I said, that's where all the big real changes are. I do want to talk about the broker side of things, because there's a couple of things that are a little bit different that you might have even noticed before, as you're sort of, looking around in Matrix that looks slightly different. And so definitely going to give you all of that, including some information about some things that aren't new, but I feel like we're realizing a lot of people kind of weren't aware of. And this is a really perfect time to sort of find out about some notification options and different things like that. So I'm just going to start with, like I said, the client side of these things, because this is going to be where the majority of the changes are. And in addition to that, where, sorry if you hear my dog barking in the other room, he'll be quiet in a second. Sorry about that, guys. This is really a tool for your clients, right? So here is what I'm going to do is pull over here an email. So I'm going to play sort of the role right now of a client, right? And I received this email from my broker, right? Who's me in this scenario, right? Roxanne. And so I get the email, right? It looks kind of like this. So if you're familiar with the way the emails looked before October, this is a lot prettier. They were just a little more bare bones before. It was fine, but this is a little bit nicer looking. The sort of example that I have set up here is related to an automatic email. So what I've done is I've already set that up in Matrix for this client. This is the same kind of process that you would go through, though, if you're not doing an automatic email, you're just sending one listing, right? So same idea. They get an email from you. This text here is just that sort of standard text that shows up in the system. You could write your own. I just didn't take the time to do that. So this message could be personalized for sure. And then there's a link in it, right? So I'm the client, right? And I click on this link and it takes me to OneHome, right? So that's really what the heart of OneHome is. It's the link that you send your clients when you send them a listing through Matrix. And if you were familiar with the way the client portal worked before, this looks probably really similar, right? There's just a couple of tiny differences, like the map used to be on the left and the listings were on the right, and vice versa. Things like that have switched around a bit. And so I will say that it is a pretty easy system to use in terms of if you have clients who, can shop on Amazon, they're probably going to do fine here without a lot of guiding that needed from you. In fact, chances are you've been sending people emails already. You probably haven't even heard from most of them because they're figuring it out, right? They don't really need a lot of assistance. But, people will ask questions, and there's some things that don't really stick out that you might want to be sort of pointing people in the direction of. And so I want to make sure that you see that. Now, the first thing I want to just quickly point out here, though, is I clicked on that link, and then you'll notice up here in the top right-hand corner, there's a spot that says activate account, right? I'm not going to click on that yet because your clients don't have to activate an account, but they have this option to. So what I'm going to show you first is all the things they can do if they don't activate an account. And when it says activate an account, you'll see me do it in a minute, but it just means like set up a password so you can come back. It doesn't mean put in, your mom's maiden name or like any personal information or anything like that. So what I can do without any, sort of account activated, I get the link from my broker, I click on it, and I can look at these listings, right? I can see them here on the list. I can see them on the map. I can click in either place if I want to open up the listing itself and sort of, look at the full details. And the full details are right here. The layout is a little bit different, honestly improved. So I can look at the photos, right? If I want to, of course. I have a ability to look at all of them at once. There aren't any captions on this particular listing, but that would show as well, if we were looking at the photo gallery. So if they had written some of those. Link down here to a virtual tour if there's one provided. And then if I scroll down, I just get some more details, right? I get the breakdown of the basics here. I get those marketing remarks. And then as I scroll down, I have all these different sections that are like collapsed. So if I want to really dive into the details about this, I just click to expand, and then I've got all the property details, right? And then I can come down here and I can click and I've got all the building details. These are things that they have always had access to, in the portal from before OneHome, but I just want you to see that it's all still there, right? So all that information that you've always provided to them, from the listing when you send it to them is still here. But what happens as I start scrolling down is I start to get a couple of things that are new, at least new to being displayed when you send a link through Matrix. They're probably not new to you by any means. So there's a section now for school ratings, right? So that is on like the apps that you might use, the Home Snap and Home Spotter apps, but it wasn't in the previous portal. So now clients can see this. I'm an old teacher. I used to teach elementary school. So I hate number ratings because I always feel like they're they just bug me a little bit, but I actually really like the way these ratings are listed because it gives me information, right? So not so much that I care about 7 out of 10, but hey, what's the student to teacher ratio? How large is the school? I find that pretty valuable. So you can see those things here. And then if I scroll down, I also have another new thing. This little box here that gives me access to public record data, right? So if I click on this, and if you think about when you are in Matrix and you're looking at a listing and how there's like different tabs of information, there's like a tax tab, that's essentially what this is. It's like the same stuff that you can see when you're looking at that. So they can basically see this county information if they're interested. Of course, they could skip past a lot of this when they're in the early phases of looking probably and just look at the basics. But when they're ready to really dive in, they might be interested. And this is going to include sort of like the last market sale information too. So I just feel like that's kind of interesting and also new to them to be able to see in this portal situation. There's a spot where it'll tell me if there's any upcoming open houses, right? There isn't one here, but maybe we'll see one when we look around a little bit more. And then there's a section right here that I'm actually going to pass by right now. I'm going to come back to this because this is more to do with what they can do after they activate that account, right? So I'm skipping past this little section at the middle bottom here. And then I've got more, right? I've got this getting around the neighborhood section, also new, right? So walk score and kind of giving you a feel for that. I can see some past history. This is coming from the MLS side of things. So, if you want to go back and see when was it, so the last sold and so on, they can take a look at that information. So all of these things are here. And then these are the other listings that I've sent them, so they could go to the next one this way. They could also go to the next one. See this little toolbar here as I float like up and down. It's always at the bottom. If I hit next, it takes me just to the next one on the list. If I hit here where it says all listings, it just takes me back to that kind of main page, right? Where again, it says all listings, but what it means is all the listings your broker sent, right? In this case, I sent 4 or 5, something like that. Now, all of those things I can do, let me click on it to another one here. I can do without, again, activating an account. There's a few other things I can do without activating the account that are here at the top of the listing, right? So here I've got a spot where I can look at some market insights, for example. So it'll show me some basic demographics and some, just stats about this location. It does it by zip code usually. So, it's not breaking it down too much further than that, but I can, see that information and I can do some comparison too. If I wanted to be able to sort of like mark multiple listings, I could get kind of like a side-by-side view, which is nice. I just, I could click here. Is it going to give me, no, see what I want me to search for it. So that's not the easiest way to get that started, but I can do a comparison. And then I also have here a spot where it says breakdown of monthly cost. So there's a little cost calculator in there now. And that's also new. And it'll kind of give them this estimated monthly cost and also give them the opportunity to tweak this for their own sort of details, right? So they might say, okay, we're going to be putting down this amount and, our assurance is, this amount or, whatever the details are, they can put it in and it'll adjust that sort of monthly cost calculator. And what it will do also is it'll show it here. So after they've sort of put in those details, they can go to other listings too and see them kind of showing that. And all those things are, the typical things most folks are probably doing when they get a listing sent to them. They're really just looking at those details. What'll happen though now is if your clients want to do or use any of the interactive tools, which they've always had interactive tools, they've always had this ability to write you notes about listings and mark things as favorites and so on. But now that we have OneHome, when they want to be able to do those things, they need to have an account that they activate. I will tell you, I see that question about, well, how does the request a tour work? I'll show you in just a second because it's a big part of this. And I want you to see it. And it doesn't do as much as it looks like it does, to be honest. So here, what I would want to do, for example, let's say I like this one, right? I'm the client and I want to say I like it. There's a little heart that's clearly right there. If I click on it though, I get this little pop-up that says that I have to activate my account. The same thing will happen if I hit that thumbs down or if I hit that request a tour button, right? Or a couple of other things. I just get that pop-up. Oh, but you know what? Let me pause because before I activate my account, I do want you to know there's one other thing that they could do without activating an account, which is run their own search, right? So they have the ability to look at the listings that you sent to them. for sure, and all that detail. But they also, even without activating an account, because you sent this email to them, they now have this OneHome access. They basically have access to all the listings in Matrix. If they come over here, there's a button that says new search, right? Kind of in the top right corner. They can put in their own criteria, right? Maybe it's a little bit different. They could say, yeah, we're going to buy, we're looking for a house. Our price ranges max, whatever, 5 million. Yeah, sure. Why not? Bedrooms, it's like they can put in all these little details, and then they might find something that, you didn't find, right? And say, hey, here's a listing that, I've identified that my broker hadn't included, and I still have access to all that same information for every listing, right? Regardless of whether I found it for myself or not. It's just going to still give me the opportunity or the reminder to activate my account if I try to use any of those additional tools, right? But I can still see all the listing information. So what happens, let me leave this search, right? What happens then if I want to activate an account is I can click on this big button up here, or I could, come from down here. So it'll do the same thing. And what it wants me to do is it wants me to put in my name. My name today is just going to be Best Choice, and then create a password. Do I need to? Okay. And then I typed it again, and people watch me, and I hope that I match it the first time. Oh, see, I swear I can type better when people aren't watching. There we go. All right. I agree to these terms of service, which I will just admit to you, I have not read. And then I click activate account. After that's done, then I'm sort of official, right? So all my broker had to do to sort of get me to this place was send me the one email. And now I looked at the information and I have an account that I've just created, so I can continue to do that and also be able to sort of interact with my broker a little bit more, right? And they didn't used to have to activate an account to do things like that, right? They always used to be able to put favorites and things like that. And so this barrier is new, but there's some advantages to it. Let's see. How can they show days on market? I think it shows, Craig, but let me look. And if it doesn't, that's a mistake. We would definitely want to have it on the listing. So let me see. So here I'm going to log in now, right? So I'm going to say, okay, here's my email address, and here's my new password I just set up. See, this is so embarrassing. I should start writing some jokes about what happens when I do this so that it looks like I'm doing it on purpose instead of on accident. But it is an accident. So if you guys ever hear me make a joke about it, you'll know the truth. And now, though, that I typed in the right password, I am back in OneHome. It looks basically the same, except I'm logged in, right? So up here, instead of saying activate account in the top right, it says my initials, right? Here it's saying I have a new notification because it does give your clients this sort of like option for a little tour of OneHome when they first get in. I'm giving you the tour. I don't need to do that, right? And then now, though, even though it looks the same, they do have more capabilities, right? They can do more stuff. So I could come to a listing and I could say, I love this one, right? I've got a little heart in multiple places. You saw it on the page before. It's right here in the top. It's also at the sort of towards the bottom in this little block right here, right? So I like this placement actually, because if someone's reading through all the details and they get to this at the end, it's kind of a nice reminder to be like, hey, do you like it or not? You'll notice that there's two options. There's favorite, like I like it, and then there's not for me, the thumbs down. There did used to be 3 options in the previous client portal. There was one that was like they called it possibility, like a maybe pile. So they did take that option away. If you had any clients who have been looking this whole time and use the old portal and are still using the new portal now, anything that they might have marked as a possibility was turned into a favorite. So no one lost anything, but they no longer have the choice to sort of create a maybe pile, right? They just have a yes pile and a no pile. And then in fact, I marked this one as a favorite. Let me go to another one and I'll do the opposite, right? I'll say this one I don't like, it's not for me. So I click the little thumbs down. And again, it's here. It's also in that middle section. And then it's also, if I click back to the listing list, it's also right here, right? So lots of different places where they can sort of take those notations down. But those aren't the only things that they can do. Here, I'll mark this one as a favorite too. They also can communicate with you on individual listings. And this is something that's always been true, but it does look a little bit different now. And so I want to make sure that everybody sees this. And I want to see days on market. Oh, yay. Okay. There it is. I didn't know exactly where it was, but it is there. Yay, Craig. Okay. I was like, I know it's there somewhere. So they might have to click into it. They might have seen it before, maybe in a different location, but it'll show that for each listing. So if I scroll down, I'm going to go to that section that's kind of in the sort of middle bottom, right? I've marked this as a favorite. There's a little spot right here where it's like talk to your agent. So it'll have your information and so on. And you know, they could quickly call you if they wanted. But there's also here a little link that says add a note, right? So if they had a question or a comment or something about this listing, they can click on add a note and they could write a note to you, right? To their broker. You know, so they might say, oh, how old is the roof? That's just my silly example, you know, or they might say, I love this one, or, you know, could be anything that they have to say. Could be questions, could be comments, and so on. Let's see, we've got, why are those sign up benefits from the client's percent? I will tell you a little bit later. And you know, it was a hard transition for me too. So you can kind of take it with, you know, and run with it or not, depending on how you want to do it. But I'll show you, we'll talk a little bit more about that. So I wrote a note. I'm going to go ahead and just close this out. See how it's a little X in the corner. And now there's a note attached to this listing, right? I can see it right there. See where it says add a note, but then now it's a number 1, right? If I click on that, I can see the note and add more. The other big thing though, that connects to the add a note is this giant, which someone asked about before, this giant request a tour button, right? This looks a lot fancier than it is. Let me go to another listing since I already have, you know, a note on that one. I want to have a fresh one here. So I'm going to come to this one. I don't have to mark it as a favorite, but I'm going to click request a tour. This makes it look to me as like when I'm playing the client, like, hey, I'm like actually scheduling something. And that's not the case. What it does is it says, okay, well, when are you available? And I can say, okay, you know, tomorrow in the morning. I guess I have to put the whole year, right? You know, or whatever times. And then I click a button that says request a tour. What it does when I do that is it says we've passed along your availability and your agent will be in touch. And so what it's done is it's sent you just another note, just like the other one where I said, how old is the roof? Except this note says, I want to see this and here's when I'm available, right? It doesn't connect to showing time. It doesn't connect to the listing broker in any way. It truly just connects to you and functions exactly like the other notes feature. So see now how this one says add a note, but then the number 1, right? When I click on that, it doesn't say, you know, how old is the roof? It says, hi, you know, basically just wrote this message for me, you know, and requesting this certain, you know, kind of date and time. For anything to actually happen, you'd have to, you know, take whatever the next steps are, right? So that's just an important thing to understand. Like you might tell people if you don't want to do it this way, hey, if you want to request a tour, you know, get in contact with me a different way, text me or whatever. Or, you know, I'll show you a good way to keep on top of that. There's a way you can set up notifications if people write you notes and stuff like that when we switch to kind of the broker side of things. But definitely be aware that that's there. It's very attractive. I feel like it's big and blue and people are going to probably find it and click on it. And so, you know, be aware and maybe kind of ready for that. I'm going to peep at the chat for a second. It shows add a note at the top. Yes. Is it to send us to, or the notes send to you? Your clients, of course, can kind of use them if they want for their own note taking. But the main idea behind that is that you can also see them because you also, and I'll show you this in a bit, but you can write back, right? So you can actually have a conversation about a particular listing kind of attached to it, which I think can be pretty nice. The question in the chat says, do the notes come over to you or the client by email or text? By default, neither. And so I'm going to show you how you can set it up to get notified however you'd like. You can choose either email or text. And so we will talk about that, don't worry. And Mary, I know the sign in is a funny little sort of additional step that's new. And so I feel like that's really hard. We'll show you what I think are some of the advantages to it, but you know, I hear you. I don't even completely disagree. Although I've gotten kind of used to it and have appreciated some of the nice things about it. Now, after I have this account activated, right? So I can mark things as favorites. I can send these notes. I can hit that request a tour. If I go sort of to this main page, or there's really just this header bar up here at the top. I can take a look at my favorites at any point, right? So I can kind of click here, look at them on the map. I can look at them, this way. I can also look at those ones that I've kind of discarded or said were not for me. And I can always change these things, if I want to, just by unchecking the heart and the thumbs down. So it keeps track of that for me. It also, though, like I kind of said, at least I hope I did, you'll get a chance as the broker to see those things. And then when I do a search, remember how I set up that search before? I put in, criteria and found, and now I'm upping their budget. Now it's 7 million. Like, yes, let's do this, guys. Right. And maybe my client who I thought was looking for something around 700,000 is like, yeah, now I have $2.5 million and I want to buy this. And what I can do here, of course, is I can mark things as a favorite. I can request a tour. I can add a note, even though my broker didn't find them for me. So that's one thing that's a new or in addition. But the other thing I can do is I can save this search, right? So if I come in as the client and I'm putting in all these criteria that are, sort of important to me or whatever. Oh, I don't want to put any. I want 4. In square footage. And there's actually a handful of other things too. They click where it says more. They can ask for, a certain kind of home. They can ask for keywords, different things like that. So they can run this kind of a search. And then they can save it so that they can look at it again in the future. So see up here where it says save search. This is where the sort of new search button was before it switches to save when we're on this page. They can name it. So I can say, okay, I'm just going to call it my search. It's not a very good name, but we'll remember that that's what I called it. And then I can sort of access that over and over if I want to. And in addition to that, if it's interesting, depends on how you work, you'll be able to see this too, right? So you'll be able to be like, oh, and they created their own search, and if you want to look at whatever listings came up, you'll be able to do that and see that. So that's another thing they can do. So they could run the search regardless if they set an account or not. They can save it to look at it again if they do have the account. And in fact, they can go back and forth in between the things that are sent to them. See this little drop down menu up here? Right now, I'm in my search. But if I look, I have a section up here that's my agent saved searches. This is that auto email that I set up for my clients. And then here's the one that they, created for themselves. And there might be more than one that I created for them. There might be more than one that they create for themselves. They can access them from this drop down at any point. Here where it says listing sets, this is if you send just individual listings via email. So instead of doing an auto email, you go look and you say, I've got these 3 and I want to send it out to these people, right? So they can kind of quickly access all that stuff. So I might even say, okay, I'm going to go back to the ones my broker, sent to me. And now here I am. And look, I toggled off the map. Let me toggle it back on here. Okay, so they've got those things here. And hold on, let me go back to the chat. Let's see. With some of my investor clients, I actually like to send them broker information. Is there any way of adding this? You know what? There's not really. What happens with everything that is sent to clients through Matrix, everything that they see in OneHome, is that it sort of becomes sanitized. I don't know, that's not really not the best way to describe it. But what it really does is it takes Matrix, because here they have access to Matrix. And anywhere you go online and look at listings, they're coming from Matrix. Matrix is a source, right? Northwest MLS is a source, the holder of the listings. And there's a lot of great tools out there and apps and websites that, are member offices that have agreements, and they work pretty well, and they can be really fast. But this is truly as close as you can get to the source. Because if I'm looking at a listing and that minute someone marks it as pending, right? Or changes the price or something like that, and I'm one of your clients and I click on it, I'm going to see right away that change, right? Because it's really just Matrix with this sort of user-friendly, overlay on it, like a filter on it. And so what it takes out, in addition to, sort of having a different look and everything, what it takes out is anything that we consider confidential. Broker information is included in that, even though I totally understand situations where, you would want to share that. But it does take that out. It also takes out the broker remarks, right? So of course, showing instructions and all those are taken out, as well as, I feel like, another couple of things. Owner name and phone number, right? All the other stuff really is here though. And one of the things that, at least here at Northwest MLS, we've been really kind of passionate about lately and sort of working towards increasing is just like the transparency idea. So you can see things here like what the commission is. I don't know where it is, but it's somewhere in here. You can see details that some other places or maybe historically weren't available to your clients. But yeah, you would still probably have to go through the process of sharing that broker information a different way. Okay, let's see. So if I go back here, the other things that I want to show you that are kind of new. So most of what you've seen me do so far is like a different version of what you could always do, right, inside of the old client portal with some kind of improvements, but a lot of the same sort of tasks. You could communicate, you could mark things as favorites, you could run your own search and save it. There are a couple of things here, though, that are brand new, or at least different from anything we've really been able to offer before. And those connect to this link up here at the top on this header bar that says planner. And you can choose to use this or not. If you don't point this out to your clients, they may or not even kind of really notice it or click on it. But there's two things here, and they're kind of embedded together. But what the planner is something that basically has the steps of either the buying or the selling process. There's two different kind of modes you can toggle between that give your client something to kind of read and then basically check off a checklist. So if I click on the first one here, I'm saying I'm a buyer. I click on this, it says, okay, here's the first things you should do, think about this and so on. And if I'm like, yeah, I've done that already, I can click here where it says mark as complete. Right. And then it marks it as complete. And I can go to the next task. And it's like, okay, figure out your finances. And I can say, okay, I've done that, and so on. Right. And so there's this, and it goes on to, pretty far. There's like a lot of different things you can sort of check on this checklist. And so you will be able to see that if you're interested. So if you find it helpful, you could direct clients to it. And then part of this is that when I am coming into this planner, there is a section that's set your home preferences. And this one becomes a little bit more dynamic. So if I come here and I click on update my preferences, it connects me to something that they call property fit, where it gives me like a little quiz to take essentially that, kind of asks me some questions about, what kind of home am I looking for? It's sort of like I'm creating maybe like my dream wish list, a little bit here. And I can make some choices about whatever that, sort of means to me. There's a spot too. I know that it's asking me all these questions. I'm trying to go fast. There's a spot too where you can like see different features. I'm gonna kind of skip past that and rate them, like what's important to me, what's not important to me. And then after I've done that, right, hopefully a little bit more thoughtfully than I actually did, just clicking randomly, when I'm looking at listings, what it'll do is it'll kind of rate them against whatever my answers were and give me a percentage that they're calling like this property fit score. So see the listing over here now, when I look at the bottom of it, it says 66%. So it's saying that's how close it is to matching sort of what I was looking for. And then a couple of lower ones, and I might see ones later that are higher or whatever. So I have the ability to sort of access that. And again, that would be true even if I'm looking at listings that weren't sent to me. So any single listing that I see, look at this one, says low match. Oh man, I've never seen that before. This must be a not so great one. Usually the answers are a little bit higher, but I mean, in terms of the numbers, I think because I maybe think about it a little bit more based on what I've sent already. But, it kind of gives you a little bit of an insight, at least into, what you could customize. Now, the property fit and the planner are the two newest things. Like I said, everything else has sort of been improved upon a little. The speed is better, for example. The information has been, sort of added to. But the same processes your clients could do go through before, other than that planner and stuff, are really similar. There is a couple of other differences that I want you to know, but I think I might focus more on them on the broker side of things. But I want to quickly point out here that up at the top where it says my initials, if I click on that, I get like kind of my own like profile. So this is your clients, like little profile. I mean, they don't need to have any information in here, but I just want to point out to you that they have a spot here where it says your group. So if you are sending listings to maybe a couple or a family or some sort of a group of people where it's like multiple email addresses, You don't need to change your process to do that. You can do that the same way you always have, but just keep in mind, it's going to give them these sort of groups. This is how this functions. And so that is a little bit different. In fact, I'll, like I said, kind of show you on the broker side of things where that might become a little bit clearer. So let me glance at the chat again and see what we've got going on there before I switch gears. Craig says we could customize templates. No, not really, but I'll show you what you can customize. And then I think I got most of the other ones. I know some folks are not loving the sign in. It is definitely new, but everybody has to sign in for everything these days. So probably people are pretty used to it. Let's see. Okay, so let me go ahead and just minimize this for a second and switch gears. I'll keep it handy. Oh, I'm sorry. You know what? I want to show something that relates to Craig's question before I do move this out of sight a bit. You can't customize a template anymore. So you used to be able to really kind of make this client portal yours in a different way, because you could create a banner that would show up across the top that gave you a chance to brand this a lot better, honestly, than it does now. What you can do now is you can just create like this little kind of profile for yourself that your clients see. You may have noticed that everywhere I go inside of this system, my face is in the bottom corner, a little cartoon version of my face anyway. So you'll have the opportunity to pick whatever little sort of picture shows down here, as your clients kind of make their way through things, no matter where they go. It doesn't have to be a picture of you, but it could be a logo, something like that. And if they click on that, then they can get more information about you and contact info, right? So there's some basic stuff that shows up. There's also an actual profile they can access where you can put in, and you get to choose how much of this stuff you put in, but you can put in contact info and like social media links, things like that here. And then you could also put a video. I have a video here that if my client comes and clicks on it, it's actually a video that kind of explains to them how the OneHome works. Right. So I'm not going to play it right now, but I'll show you where that is if you want to put that in there, because it might be handy if they have some questions about how to get around. And so that's really your main sort of like branding opportunity, which is much smaller than it used to be before. So that's a little bit tricky for sure. One of the things, though, that you didn't see because I already clicked before we met is the very first time one of your clients clicks on one of the links to open up OneHome. So the very first time you send them an email and they click on it, when OneHome opens, it does open with a pop-up like kind of about you. That's just sort of saying like, hey, here's my info and so on. And this kind of is also the similar to what's present in the middle of the listing, where it shows my face again and it's like, hey, what did you think about this, trying to keep me in the loop a little bit in their brains as they're looking through all this stuff. Okay, so that's my client tour for the most part. I'll keep that open, so if questions come up, we can go back to that at any point, definitely. But I want to make sure you get a chance to see the broker side of things. So like I said, OneHome is that client website. So most of the sort of, changes are definitely going to be on the client side of things. But on the broker side of things, what really has changed is that you have this opportunity now to, track some additional information. Now, you always could come into Matrix. And so hopefully you're seeing my Matrix screen now. You could always come in here and see what your clients were up to. In fact, let me reload this, and it might be a little bit slow, but see this little box right here that says recent OneHome visitors? Well, my client was just in there. Remember, it was me. So that'll show up in a second. But before, I'll show you that when it comes. I also could go to the contact for this person on my list. So if I go to my Matrix contacts, wherever I have this person saved, Best Choice was the name of my client today. When I go to their, page where I've entered in basic stuff like their email address and their name, I now can see all the things that they've done in OneHome as well. There's this little essentials review box, which I like because it's just kind of like the basics. They've got 3 favorites. They've discarded one. They have a couple of notes that I need to take a look at. But then I also can see underneath that the other sort of details of the activity that's gone on. Right. So the recent activity really breaks everything down, saved a search, added a favorite, added a note, visited their portal, right? Clicked on it. It gives me access to that planner information. So I can see, okay, how close are they to the process if they've noticed that, see what things they checked off and what they didn't, and has a little completion bar. And if they did, there's a seller one too. If they did that, it would show me that as well. And then it shows me their answers to that property fit score. So I can see, hey, what did they say? And maybe take that into account on my own, searching that I'm doing for them. So I can see all that here. I can see the actual, favorites and discards as well, just by clicking on them, right? So I can click on this and I'll be like, hey, here's the favorites. This looks really similar to how it used to look. So if you are used to this, you really don't have to think too much, differently than you ever have. I do just want to point out now that it's always told you when you emailed it, then it'll now show you what that property fit score is as well when you're looking at listings sort of through the lens of that client. So if they end up liking that and sort of taking it, to heart, then you can definitely do the same. And I can see, how many times did they look at this one and they marked it as a favorite. And then I can also see that I have this one that has a note, right? So I can get to the note this way. I also, though, because I clicked on favorites in that case, just happened to be a coincidence that there was a note there. I can click directly here on where it says notes, and it'll show me what those are. And so I can see the note. So here's the message, right? How old is the roof? And I could write back to it, if I want to. And then what they'd be able to see is my answer. Here's the thing about this, though. I'm going to show you some great notification options for you at this point, and I'm hoping this changes relatively soon. But at this point, there's no cool notification options for your clients. So if I write them back to a note, right? They wrote this question to me in OneHome and I answered it. They're really only going to see this if they go back into OneHome. So if they go back into OneHome, it'll say, oh, you have a new notification, and they'll click on it, kind of pops up, and they can see the answer. But it's not going to send them an email alert or a text alert or anything like that. And so you really have to keep that in mind when you are seeing these notes and answering them. Sometimes you might want to follow up in, more than one way, maybe depending on what the content of the note is, right? If they just say, I love this one, you can just write back, great, or something like that. And they don't need to have that, sort of immediately. So in the case of this, maybe that's okay. I don't know. It would depend on how often your client's going in, right? But then when I come down to something like this note, so here's another listing. This note was the one written with that request a tour button, right? So this is that one that says, I want to visit on this day at this time, right? And my client member clicked a big button that said request a tour. And then this is what happened, right? It sent me this note. So it's definitely my turn to sort of take actions if I want to make that happen, but I can respond to this. I'm going to just write, I'll call you, for example, here, right? If I wanted to write back to them and say something like, great, I'm going to pick you up at 10 a.m. I've got everything scheduled or whatever. I could totally do that. But again, remember that they might not really see that because they can't get any, sort of really clear notification about your response. So if they happen to click into OneHome, they might see it, right? But they might not do that in between now and 10 a.m. tomorrow when I'm going to show up at their house, right? So just, be thoughtful about that. Probably if it's anything that feels important or timely, maybe more than anything else, you want to make sure that you are maybe following up in multiple ways. Like you can put the information here, but then also text them, or something like that. That can get, just kind of confusing. So I want to make sure that, they don't really have, at least at this point, any sort of notifications when you respond. Okay. Let's see, question in the chat. How the client can access the OneHome only clicking on email link or it shows on Google search. Oh my gosh, I'm so glad you said that, Ricardo, actually, because only by getting the email, that's how they access it. So if they searched Google for OneHome, it might come up, but it won't really show them much. And it's so funny that I didn't show you this before. So I'm bringing the client page back because that is actually the one thing that I really like about the account, right? I also was sort of like, create an account. Why does everybody always want me to create an account? I didn't used to, and I still feel that way at times about this and the way that it works. But in the past, if I was this client, right, and I had these, listings that were in my email and I wanted to, I closed it out and I wanted to come back to them. What I'd have to do to get back to that link is I'd have to go find that old email, click on it, and then be able to look at those listings again, right? It didn't really remember me in any meaningful way that wasn't connected to like this one specific link. And so what happens now though, is that if I activate that account in OneHome, I could be, at a friend's house or out and about or anything like that. And if I want to get back in to take a look at, hey, I want to show you these things I saw, these things I marked as a favorite, or just pull them up again, I can just go to onehome.com and it'll allow me to log in. I don't have to go find that old email. I don't have to do any sort of weird stuff. I get to type in a real simple URL. I get to click sign in, and then I just put in, my email and my password. Yes, and I got it right the first time, guys. It just happens sometimes. And then I'm back in, right? So that I feel like is a huge improvement from the way that it used to be. It used to be really clunky to try to easily access your information. And people could bookmark it. And a lot of people were smart enough to do things like that. But it was just a lot less clear. And now it's like, hey, onehome.com, I put in my info, and now I'm right back in to sort of where I left off. And since I came here to show you that, I also do want to point out, like here, I've got a couple of notifications, right? There's my answers to those notes. So as the client, I could click on that and say, oh, what's the answer? Oh, she's going to call me, so keep that in mind too. Let's see. We used to get lots of notifications. Yes, let me talk to you about that, because there are some really good notification options on the broker side of things. So like on your side. So for the clients, not so much. For you, yes. And I want to show you that, because especially with those notes now that say request a tour, there's going to be things that someone might be sending to you that you don't want to miss. Right. And so, yes, you can come into Matrix and it'll show you, like, look here, recent OneHome visitors. There's my person now with all my different links. I could have clicked on here to get my notes. If I go to the settings in Matrix though, which there's a couple of ways to get there. The easiest one is to go to the top corner where your name is, and then see there'll be an option when you click on it that says settings. There's a lot of different things in settings, right? So some of the stuff you maybe never use, maybe use other parts of it all the time. But there's a spot here, and this isn't new, but it's something that not everybody realized. And I feel like it's more important now almost, where it says portal notification settings, right? So if I click here, what it does is it shows me a list of like possible actions that someone might be taking in OneHome. So are they saving a favorite? Are they writing me a note, and all these other things? And I can decide how I want to be notified about any of these things if they're happening. If you don't want any notifications, you can just uncheck all these boxes and you're good to go. There is this option over here on the far right to be notified with a daily summary email. I will say that's really nice, especially if you've got multiple clients who are sort of maybe looking at listings in OneHome. So even if you're like, I don't need to get a text, or something like that, it's nice to get this email that's kind of like overnight. And it's just like, hey, this person liked this listing. This other person, did this. It's really easy to read and concise. And anyway, I like it. I recommend it. But then you also have these choices for getting notified immediately. You can get an immediate email or an immediate text message if you want, if any of these actions, sort of take place. So you have to be kind of thoughtful about it. When I was first setting this up, a handful of years ago, you put in your phone number to get the text messages, and I put like all of those. And then I was like, this is overkill, right? I don't need to get a text message every time someone visits the portal. That would mean every time they click a link, I get a text message. Maybe you do want that, right? And maybe that's overkill. So you can kind of just think about what makes the most sense. But there's some things that probably most of you would want to get some sort of immediate response for, especially the notes. Right? So here I can say for adding a note, and maybe for you, email works fine. Just, hey, send me an email immediately if someone writes me a note, or maybe you want it to be a text, and you can sort of select that here. This is great because if someone hits that request a tour button, it's not going to be something that you miss. Right. And when you get either the text or the email, it shows you what the actual message was in the note. Right. So I receive a text message and I look at it and it might say, I love this one. And I don't have to do anything. I'm like, great. And I might get another one later that says, I want to look at this tomorrow, and then I might say, okay, well, I've got something I got to go do and sort of take care of that. So this is a good section to sort of come to think about for a minute too, how you want to use it, and then make some selections. You can always come here and tweak them too. Like I told you, I'd put too many and I just uncheck some of those boxes and change some of the things that I do. But that's something you can control and tweak at any point. I want to show you how I got here again, just in case, right? So I'm going to go back to kind of my dashboard page. I went to my name in the top right corner. I went to settings after clicking on my name, and then it's right down here, portal notification settings. And that's where I can make those sort of changes. So definitely, take time to do that if you haven't already. Like I said, that's not new. That was around before OneHome, but I think kind of flew under the radar a bit. And I want to make sure that you see it. The other thing you can do here in settings, though, that does relate to OneHome is you can customize, like I said, that little picture that shows in the corner of every page, and that place where you can put in a video and so on. That's here in the My Information section. The My Information section used to be where you got to set up that banner that showed on the old client portal that I know that I miss, and I feel like Craig or someone mentioned that they miss too. You can still create a banner for when you print things out of Matrix, but who prints anymore, But there's a tab here that says OneHome. So here's you can pick what that image is going to be, right? So it could be a logo, could be a picture of you, whatever. We have your main contact information, so that'll just kind of come over automatically, but you do have the ability to add in other things. So see how there's these like spots for social media links and things like that. So I could put those in. I get to write a little message if I want that shows to anybody. And then I could put a video link as well. So the video link that I have here, like I said, is this one that's kind of like a tour for your clients of OneHome. So that can be one of the options. But also, if you have an introductory video, for yourself or your office or something, you could put something like that here too. But that's how you would get there. If you don't come in here and put anything, it's still going to show all of your information. It's just going to have that little circle at the bottom with your initials in it instead of, a picture. So definitely come here and do this if you're going to be sending a lot of links through Matrix to folks, but it's not kind of like oh no, stop immediately. Make sure you get this taken care of. It works pretty well even if you don't come and customize it too deeply. Okay, so one other thing I want to show you that is a little less related to OneHome, except it came out at the same time, is that there is an additional feature now for you in Matrix that gives you the opportunity to actually text your clients and email them at the same time, essentially. So I want to show you what I mean by that, because that didn't sound so clear. So if I come to my contacts, right, I'm just going to go back to my best choice contact for today, right? I can come here, and then there's a button up at the top that says send opt-in. If I click this and I choose send opt-in request, you can see it says text message. There's only really one choice. What it'll do is it'll send an email to my client that basically asks them if they're interested in also receiving text from me. And if they say yes, it'll ask them to put in a phone number, right? And then after that happens, what I can do is I can go to send them an email. First, I'll just start with, I want to send them this listing, so a random listing. And I come here and I say, okay, I want to send this to my client. You'll notice that there's a little box down here. And maybe you've noticed it before, although it also is one of those things that flies under the radar. It's kind of small. That says also send link via SMS text message. So if they have opted in, I can check this box. And what'll happen when I send this is it'll go to the email and it will go to them via text, right? This one is saying, hey, you can't do that. They haven't opted in yet, right? So let me pick a different one of my clients that has, just so you kind of see. One of you has, right? I can check this little box, then see how that doesn't pop up, right? And I could go forward and send this. That's something that's pretty new. They do have to do the opting in on their own, like you putting in their email address. Their text phone number doesn't really, automatically do it or anything like that. But once they have sort of said yes to this, then you'll have this opportunity to, send it with these check boxes. The same is true, though, also for auto emails, right? So let me go to a listing here. If I wanted to create an auto email, I also have that checkbox here as well, right? And so that's, if it's a recurring thing, that might be kind of nice for someone to get like that text message. They do get a text and an email. There's no way at this point to only do text message. So just think about that. I don't know if you want to, if you have folks who are going to be irritated by that, maybe just stick with the emails, or, if you, like doing things sort of other ways you could use, the apps or something like that. But, keep in mind that this option exists now. And it's kind of a two-step process. First, you have to send in the opt-in request. And then if they've opted in, that's when you have the chance to start checking that box to also send via text. I think that's kind of it on the broker side of things. Oh, the one thing I wanted to touch on that I did briefly mention before was in the contacts when you were working with more than one person at a time, right? Remember I kind of talked about that. You can create contacts that have more than one email address in them, because maybe it's a couple or something like that. And you don't want to have to duplicate, what you do. You want to be able to just do it once and send it to everybody. You can still do that the way you always have. It functions slightly differently now, and that they'll each have the opportunity to create an account in OneHome, but it will be a separate account. Right. So you can kind of think about maybe how you want to make that work. I've talked with some folks who've kind of changed the way they do it now. They say, oh, you know what, I know I create a separate contact for each, person. I know other folks who have kind of done the sort of standard thing that they used to do, which is fine. They put in 2 email addresses. What happens then, though, is if your client writes notes and things like that, for example, they all can view all of them, but it'll indicate like who it's from. Oh, this person wrote this one, and this person wrote a different note. And the only thing, and this has always been true, I suppose, but the only thing is the favorites, just whoever gets there first or last, right? Someone can click a heart or unclick a heart to their heart's content for that kind of thing, and override what someone else did, which has always been true, but would still be true even with the sort of the groups function. And that's it. So your life doesn't really need to change. It has been changed already, honestly, right? Because it was October that this change happened. So if you have sent an email to anybody from then forward, they've already been to OneHome, right? And so if they've had any questions or anything like that, and you've managed to deal with it, that's probably the limit to sort of what you can expect to, be kind of contacted about. At least that would be my assumption. But it is a little bit different. And so does anybody have any questions? I know that there were some. I'm going to scroll back through the chat to make sure I didn't miss any. But please go ahead and type in anything else. Let's see. Do the notes come over? Okay, we talked about that. We talked about that. Okay, let's see. Can I show how to send the text opt-in again? Yeah, so that's done at the client, like contact level. So if I go to my matrix contacts and I go to the client that I'm thinking of, there'll be a link right here that says send opt-in. All I have to do is click on that and then click on send opt-in request. And it'll just send it to the email that I already have in for them. And, they'll be able to kind of make the choice if they want to do it or not, right? So just as like an invitation more than anything else that they receive via email. In fact, do I still have that email address open here? I don't know if I do. Maybe not, but anyway, the email is pretty basic. But what it looks like after they have opted in, I'll go to one of my other folks who has, is their phone number is there, and then there'll be a check mark, and it'll let you know, kind of like what that timestamp is for when they opted in. And so, that's like I said, I said it was 2 steps, but it's kind of 3. You send the opt-in, they respond or not, right? And then after that, you check the box if you want to send it via text. Is there any app for OneHome? No, it's just a website. So it opens up in a browser. So if your client is on their phone or tablet or something, for example, they'll be able to just go to their email there and click on the link, and it'll open in whatever browser is on their device. The OneHome website is responsive, which means that if they are on a small screen, it changes a little bit, to accommodate that. And so they will have the ability to look at all that information pretty well on even a small device like a phone. It kind of tweaks it a bit to make sure that it's, not just a picture of that page real small, right? But it's not an app. So there's nothing to download or anything like that. It looks as though I have to, I'm going back to the chat, sorry. It looks as though I have to sign in as a client sometimes. I do have a dummy account and I'm a bit confused to see my client's items. If I'm on Matrix already, I should not have to log in. Yeah, it's really, it's really something that functions differently for a lot of us who are in Matrix all the time, and we're used to kind of doing things for your clients because you don't really need to go to OneHome ever. It's kind of nice to have a dummy account, just like you said, and then you kind of understand it, or if someone asks you a question, you can hop in and figure that out. But you shouldn't have to, do that with any regularity. And one of the things that is hard or different, I guess, or a change is that you used to be able to access like your client's version of the client portal. And you can still do that. I'll show you how. But you used to be able to actually like kind of like do stuff when you were in there a little bit, and you really can't anymore. Now their OneHome account is really theirs, even though it communicates with you. So if I do come here, let me go back to my my client from today. Right. So if I am in my client's, contact, right? I can come here and I can say open in OneHome, right? So here, there's their auto email. I can take this kind of shortcut. But when I'm here, I'm already logged in. When I'm here and I'm not already logged in as the person, it does sort of put me in this like agent preview mode, right? So I can see this, I can navigate a little bit, but I can't really do anything. So if you're someone, and actually someone might have asked this earlier, I feel like that was the question. I was like, I know I missed something. If you're someone who previously, for example, likes to write notes and things like that beforehand, you can still do that. But if you went into the portal before to do that, you can't do it that way anymore. And so let's say that I am going to be sending some listings to my clients. I'm just going to pick kind of this is the Market Watch. That's a little silly. I'm going to go back to a search here. It's my little shortcut. Okay, so I want to maybe send some listings to my clients, and I want to put a note with the listing so that when my client looks at it, they can also see my note that says, whatever detail I wanted them to notice. What I can do is right now, when I'm looking at the listings themselves, I can actually change this into a view that shows it to me under essentially like the lens of that particular client. So see the toolbar, down here at the bottom that I'm sure use all the time to send emails and things like that. You can come here to the tab that says refine, and then you'll see it says view as. And I can say, okay, I want to view this as my client best choice, right? And then when I do that, it kind of switches it. I can see that property fit score. I can see things I've emailed or haven't, and I can access the notes. So if I'm going to be sending, this one, for example, to my client, I can click right here and I can say, check out the kitchen or whatever it is I might want to see, or whatever it is you used to do that you want to still be able to do. And as soon as I do that, that note is going to be attached to this listing in OneHome for that person. Now I'd need to email it to them for them probably to notice it, but if they found it on their own search, they'd see it anyway, right? So I'd probably write the note and then I'd find the listing and then I'd send it via email. But I'd have to go through those steps before. I know that that's the way it sort of always was intended to be. But one of the things we found out about the switch was that there was a lot of really creative, cool things that people were doing by sort of just moving about and clicking kind of links and going about things in kind of a, back and around the back kind of a way that stopped working, right? You got to kind of do things the official way now, which might not be as streamlined. And so we've taken a lot of those notes actually and tweaked this even a little bit so far. There's some more probably tweaks to come in that same way, because there were things people were doing that we didn't realize that they were doing. Like, for example, if there's anybody here who used to use the preview link, there used to be a preview link when you sent an email. Turns out a bunch of people use just that link to send out, and you can't do that anymore. It's gone. So there's all kinds of little things like that that have sort of come to our attention that we're trying to accommodate. So if you're having any issues like that, like, well, I used to really have a system that worked and this is what it was, and now that doesn't work, let me know, because I might be just that you're stuck for now. But we really do have the opportunity to possibly kind of work with that a little bit and see what we can do for workarounds and so on. Now that's the heart of it. And I know I've talked over time already. But I do want you to see my email address, right? If you have any questions about OneHome or anything else comes up, you can always just shoot me an email. So if you ever struggle in any of our systems, and you kind of just need a little bit of a hand that's beyond maybe a quick question or something like that, I can definitely be your resource for that. So don't hesitate. If anyone has any other questions, I'm happy to sort of hover and answer them. But also, thank you for giving me your hour, and I hope it was useful. Good. I'm glad it was. Looks like it was for a few folks.
Yeah, thank you so much, Roxanne, for helping us out here.
Always and anytime.